Hi, welcome to Living Colorado, Getting Real Estate. I'm Kenda, and this is my partner, John.
Hey everybody, nice to be here. Good seeing you today, Kinda. We moved to Colorado about a year ago, and during that process, we have learned so much about living in Colorado. And we decided to start a podcast about what it's like to really live here. Everything from the cost of living to restaurants to the people that we meet. There's just so many great things about Colorado and living here. Whether you're relocating here or you live here, you've just moved here, you've lived here forever. We hope to introduce you to some new things.
It's so much fun to go discover these new things, and we definitely don't know everything about the town. And one of the things that we have picked up on is that so many areas in and around Denver have these different community feels. And so today we thought it would be fun to kind of learn a little bit about some of these different major communities within the Denver metro area and share with you what we found. I had so much fun, John, like researching and learning about the history of some of these towns. There were so many things that I learned, and it just gives you so much more of a feeling of being connected and grounded in a place, and you appreciate some of the things that you see a little bit more when you learn the history and you understand how it became what it is today. So we kind of broke down. I'm taking a few that I did research on, and I'm excited to learn some things about what John did research on. So John, why don't you kick us off with one of
Sure.
my favorite little towns, Cherry
Cherry
Creek?
Creek? Yeah, Cherry Creek. Yeah, I agree with you. And before I get into Cherry Creek real fast, I was at the Colorado Preservation Incorporated's gala last Thursday, and that really inspired me to dive a little bit deeper into Colorado. There's so many great things. One of the benefits of living in this area is how important older buildings are to the city, right? And to the people, just not even in Denver, but across Colorado. One of my friends, Steve Turner, is on the board of the organization, and it was great to just listen to everyone talk about these different cities. And as we go through these podcasts, we're going to kind of see some of these historic areas. But with Cherry Creek, there's so much development going on, and they have. In some of the homes, they've definitely kept and restored, and there's obviously new development going on in Cherry Creek. Cherry Creek, and I've got my notes because there's so many things to cover, and I don't want to miss anything. But some of the things I think people are interested in are median home prices. What are the schools like? Especially if you're relocating to an area. Cherry Creek. In terms of like the areas that we're going to talk about today, is definitely probably the most expensive area, but it is kind of Denver's, upscale cosmopolitan core, but yet you're just 5 minutes from downtown, right? So it's home to the largest, most diverse shopping center. I didn't know this, between Chicago and San Francisco, right? Which is unbelievable. But you go to Cherry Creek Mall and you'll see everything from, Nordstrom to Hermes, Louis Vuitton, Tiffany's, Rolex. I mean, the list goes on and on, which is super fun to kind of just window shop or walk around. You've got Cherry Creek North, which is kind of this pedestrian area where there's great furniture shops and accessories and clothing boutiques and you name it. And then of course just restaurants upon restaurants, great patios to have cocktails. It's really just such a great walkable area. And then obviously you've got the paved Cherry Creek Trail, which you can take from Cherry Creek and either walk or bike straight downtown, which is very convenient. So you've got that outdoor kind of living everybody loves in Denver, but then surrounded by these beautiful areas. In terms of like median home price, not surprising, it's about 1.6 million, in Cherry Creek. But if you are like an empty nester, or you're somewhere maybe in Hilltop and you want to downsize, there's great condos and townhomes that range between 450,000 to 1.2 million. So there's definitely some affordability, in the area, and affordability is relative, right? But there's definitely, some homes that you can get in the area that aren't at the higher end of the spectrum. I think single family homes, ballpark 1.2 to 1.4 million, in the areas. In terms of like schools, it's obviously Denver public schools. One thing to mention, Kenda, most public school systems across the country, are zoned, right? So you live in a neighborhood and it's already zoned for a specific school. In Denver, they have what's called the school choice program. And what that is basically it allows a family to uh, opt in or choose into a school regardless of where it is in the Denver area. So if you're zoned for George Washington High School and your kid wants to go to East, then there's a program where you can choose to go in there. Now, obviously, the kids zoned in that area get priority, so if it gets full, right, then you're on a wait list, but if it's not, then you can choose to opt into that area. So, Bromwell Elementary is a DPS school there, and also East High is zoned, for Cherry Creek, which is great. But then, obviously, there's a lot of private options in the area, including Kent, Denver, St. Mary's Academy, and then also Colorado Academy. So, great school options. And then, the Denver Botanic Garden is also in Cherry Creek. So in terms of like hangout appeal, obviously Cherry Creek Mall, North Cherry Creek. And more development coming. Just a lot of great things about Cherry Creek. So it's kind of like Cherry Creek's like that neighborhood where you want walk out the door luxury, right? But then you can still get downtown in 5 minutes. So really, really great area.
Are Cherry Creek and Cherry Hills the same, like,
It's not.
general area? Okay.
Yeah, no, and talk about money, Cherry Hills is definitely more, more pricey than Cherry Creek. Cherry Hills is not as generally as walkable, right, as Cherry Creek is in terms of like, retail and things like that, but you have beautiful estates out there. We'll definitely get to Cherry Hills, I know, in future episodes, but good question.
And I think you forgot the most important thing, which is Bonnie Bray ice cream.
Yeah. Bonnie Bray is awesome, and it's in the Bonnie Bray kind of neighborhood, close right next to Cherry Creek, and
Yeah.
it really is fantastic.
I have a friend who lives across the street from Bonnie Bray, and I have seen the line. It's like this great, I don't know, I've never had it, but it's this great, like, local made ice cream, and doesn't matter if there's snow on the ground, it doesn't matter, there's always a line coming
It
out of
is.
Bonnie Bray, so I definitely wanna explore Bonnie Bray
Yeah,
this year.
there's something about that nostalgia because it's been around since the '40s, I think, so it's definitely, something to take visitors and guests to for sure.
Yeah. Yeah, that's pretty cool. Well, I think I will talk first about Boulder. Boulder is about 25 miles north of Denver, and it's about 33 miles to get to the airport. So it's a little bit further out than Cherry Creek. Cherry Creek, you mentioned, is like 5 minutes to downtown Denver. It's located in the Front Range, and I'm looking at my notes, but located in what we call the Front Range, and it's at the base of the Rocky Mountains where the Great Plains kind of meet the Rocky Mountains. And some of the history, I'm kind of a nerd like you, John. We both are history buffs, but some of the history was that this area, the Boulder area, has been occupied for centuries and by Native Americans, and they used to move up and down from the mountains to the plains depending on the season to be able to hunt and whatnot. So I thought that was really cool. And then it kind of got on the map as like a mining town. There was this huge Boulder gold rush, which I have mixed emotions about that because it kind of displaced so many people.
Mm.
But it is what it is. It was progress, and that's how the town ended up being established. An important thing to know is that Boulder is a huge college town, right? The
Go
University of
Buffs.
Colorado Boulder is there. It is madness there. That was established in 1877. Did you know it was that old?
No, I
That's
didn't.
1877 was when the University of Boulder was established. And I thought more current. information, starting in 2027, it's going to be the home of the Sundance Film Festival. And we have that distinction for the next 10 years. So that's kind of cool.
That's really
But
amazing.
yeah, it's kind of cool. It's a big draw and there's a lot of buzz. I'm hearing a lot of buzz about it. So the climate is temperate. It's mostly sunny. I read that on average, about 30 days a year reach 90 degrees plus, and about only 4 nights reach zero. So it's really not bad. It does get snow, but the sun quickly melts the snow, and it doesn't get a ton of precipitation because the mountains kind of block some
Interesting.
of the systems that come in, so it doesn't get as much. I was very surprised by that, that it doesn't get as much, precipitation. Politically, it leans mostly liberal, and democratic. It has very strong anti-discrimination ordinances, and, it is expensive. It is not a cheap area to live. It's one of the most expensive places to live in Colorado. The rough current median home price is around 1,000,000, and that's just kind of the average. Um, but the interesting thing about Boulder is you may not be able to afford to live in Boulder, but there are some surrounding towns that give you direct access to Boulder and lets you be able to enjoy the town. And some of those towns are Longmont, Lafayette. Um, I read that the Better Homes and Gardens just named Lafayette as one of the best little developing towns to
Really?
live. And the it's kind of a valued play area where you can buy a home for between 650 and 725 and still
Nice.
be able to get into Boulder and really enjoy Boulder. And then there's Louisville, which we had a listing there last year. We know and love Louisville. It's beautiful. The average home price there is around 840 to 950, but it's still a little bit less expensive than, Boulder. And then there's also Broomfield and Westminster. So that kinda wraps up Boulder.
That's great.
I love going there to shop. It's a lot of fun, and there's always live music, always there are always sports events, and, it's just a great farmer's market. It's a great place to go visit.
I love that. When I was at the gala last week, they talked about Boulder and the Pearl Street Mall, and that was one of the projects that was, I guess, saved. The area was saved by somebody in the Preservation Society who was like, you know what, we've got to do something about this town. And you're right, it is so great, and really is the heart of the city. And I remember last summer when we got here, a friend of ours took our son up to the Flatirons to go hiking, and it is spectacular. Hayden came back just raving about the views, and it's not a difficult hike. It's really an
Mhm.
easy hike to do, and you get these incredible views over the valley. So that's also, I think, something great, about Boulder for sure.
Yeah, yeah, I love it there, and I think it's a lot of fun and definitely a good place to go for live music and festivals and things like that.
Yeah,
I had
well,
fun listening about it.
no, totally. Yeah. Well, speaking of live music, we're gonna, Denver is so big. There's so many great neighborhoods around Denver, and one of the oldest neighborhoods in Denver is Park Hill. Right across, really, Park City Park is in Park Hill's backyard, and they have Jazz in the Park, which is great live music to go to during the summer months, June, July, August. They do a little bit in September. A couple months ago, the bandstand burned. Not sure exactly why or how, but they still are going to have Jazz in the Park. It's just going to be moved a little bit. Obviously, they can't use the gazebo right now until it's repaired and restored. Speaking about preservation, but great area. So Park Hill is, like I said, it's just east of City Park, and it's beautiful. It's got these wide canopied tree lined streets, homes that are 100 years plus old.
Mm.
You've got these craftsman bungalows and Tudors that are just really magnificent. I mean, these were homes built a long time ago, and then there was a rush in the 40s, after World War II, to get homes for people that were coming back right from the war. And so Yeah, Park Hill has been around Denver for so long. A lot of beautiful homes, and the great thing too, it's got this great kind of like neighborhood culture, right? You have kids and families walking around. There's a great cafe called Honey Hill that our realtor, when we were moving here, took us to on during our home tour, and they got the garage doors that are just open, especially on nice days. It's just a really cool place to kinda go visit. Now, the other thing is, with City Park, you have the Denver Zoo, which is right there. So, I mean, how great is it where you can walk with your kids, right, in City Park and see elephants or right like, literally right there, or just walk to the zoo and that's part of your walk, I think
Wow.
that's super cool, right? I mean,
I
where can
haven't been to the zoo yet, so I can't wait to check it out. I think for sure we'll check it out this summer.
Yeah,
We'll
I think
we'll have to maybe take some footage because I think I've heard a lot about the zoo, so
yeah,
I'm excited to
it's
check that
it's
out.
it's fantastic, yeah, and then, the Denver, Museum of Nature and Science, they're going through a renovation right now on one of its wings. It's just gonna make it even better, so, like, for the kids and the kids at heart, it is a really great place. I took Hayden, there, I guess a few months ago, and he wasn't, like, ecstatic about going, but once we were there, he was like, "Wow, this is really cool." Like, there's some really great exhibits and things change out, frequently there, so that's definitely a must do, especially if you're in Park Hill or in the area. The Park Hill has North Park Hill and South Park Hill. So North Park Hill is kind of the more value friendly area of Park Hill. You got a median price about 400,000 in
Oh,
North Park Hill, which is great, and a lot of opportunity to kind of you know do some house hacking if you want or buy and renovate a home. There's definitely opportunities there. South Park Hill tends to be a little bit more expensive, but yet the median price is still about 700,000. So still affordable for, kind of like first time home buyers or families that need a little bit more space. Maybe they were, in a condo or an apartment and they just need, some more space. And that 700,000 range is for kind of some of the restored, bungalows and tutors that are in the area. Really just again, super walkable. Again, with the public schools, Denver's, choice in, but Park Hill Elementary is definitely a renowned elementary school that people like to go to. And then, you've got obviously in Denver, the Denver School of Arts is amazing. And I did not know this, but they have Austin also had this where there's a gala similar to the Tonys for high school students, and
oh,
Colorado also has that, and the Denver School of Arts has many super talented artists, that come from there, that go to Broadway and beyond, right? So I think that's,
wow.
yeah, really, really cool. In terms of hanging out, obviously City Park, Honey Hill Cafe, all of the festivals that happen around City Park are definitely kind of like some of the go-tos. There's a restaurant called Bistro Vendome, that we love. It's kind of a French brasserie place. In the winter, it's super quaint because they've got fire and just French onion soup with the cheese melting. It's just like
Oh, you're
amazing.
killing me.
Yeah, so like definitely Park Hill is kind of like that neighborhood with a soul. That's just I don't know, just really special for all the residents there and the people that kind of visit.
What's the proximity to Denver? How long does it is it close to Denver?
Yeah, that's a great question. So I think it's about a 10-minute drive to
Okay.
downtown. So it's not bad at all. You could choose to take, RTD if you want. And Colfax kind of, splits Park Hill a little bit. But they're working on that rapid transit line on Colfax that should help, traffic move a little bit more quickly. But yeah, it's about a 10-minute drive to downtown, which obviously, that location is helpful for those that work downtown.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And that's a great segue to talking a little bit about Castle Rock, which is the next town that I wanted to share with everybody. But I did want to mention, John, one of the future episodes that we're going to do is about how to know that your home that you're purchasing is safe and up to code. And when you are buying a house that was built many, many years ago, there are some special considerations that you need to take into account when buying an older home. And we are both real estate agents. So we are connected with people who can help you do, inspections and make sure that your home that you're buying is safe and is up to codes. Don't be afraid of buying an older home. They're super fun. They have so much history, and there are ways to make sure that they're safe for you and your family. But anyway, I wanted to talk about Castle Rock next. I love Castle Rock, and I just did a video yesterday. US News and World Report just came out with the top 250 places to live in the United States, and Castle Rock was on the list. And I think it's a really great place for people to consider. But there are a few things that you need to know. It's about 28 miles to downtown Denver. So it's kind of out there. And it's about 37 miles to Colorado Springs. So it's kind of, if you work in Colorado Springs or if you work in Denver or both, it's kind of that mid waypoint. But it does take about at least 45 minutes to get to Denver International Airport. So you have to understand that the commute is pretty significant. I read this article and it was saying that the mean average commute is 28.6 miles longer than the national average.
Wow.
That's crazy.
That is
That is a
crazy.
long commute from out there. And about 80% of the Castle Rock residents commute. So it's really
They
a
must
fascinating.
love living out there.
They must love, and that's one of the questions I wanted to ask you is where's the line between commute and affordability and then the quality of living? Um, you know, there's got to be a line there. And for these people, they love living in Castle Rock and they're willing to have these major commutes. Castle Rock is actually the most populous Colorado town after downtown Denver, which I thought was really interesting. And it's named after this really unique castle shaped butte or rock formation, which is kind of in the center of town. So you can always from anywhere around, like, oh, there's the center of town because there's the castle, there's the rock that looks like a castle, which is pretty cool. It was also settled by prospectors, but they were more miners. It's much higher elevation. It's about 6,000 feet in elevation. The climate is semi-arid with cold and dry snow in the winter and hot, wet summers. So it's a little bit different than the weather, say, in Boulder.
Yep.
It's so interesting that even some of these communities have um, different even climates, which is fascinating to me. Now, I will tell you that the average household income here is twice the national average.
Hmm.
So the average household income in Castle Rock is about $150,000, and the cost of living in Castle Rock is also above average. The current rough median home price is about 675,000, which isn't bad, but it's attracting people from the city who don't mind the commute and they want a newer home with much more space. So it is also bordered by a few important towns, Castle Pines, and then Sedalia is right outside of Castle Rock. And Sedalia is like the luxury rural living. These are horse farms and ranches
Wow.
and people with tons of beautiful land lot sizes. And they have their horses out grazing and they're beautiful, beautiful, exclusive homes. And again, the average price for those homes is around 900,000 in
Oh.
Sedalia. So it's luxury rural living is what that is.
Yeah, that is. Yeah, that's interesting, because a lot of you mentioned about, the commute and the trade-off between affordability versus the commute. And, 900,000 is definitely not inexpensive, right? And so
Right.
you'd think something with, that, but those people have a different lifestyle. Perhaps, it is kind of like agricultural or equestrian, right?
Yeah.
That's kind of driving that. But that's a high price point for something, located there for sure.
It's just beautiful to drive through large mature vegetation and these giant, beautiful trees, and it's a beautiful area, very well manicured and very well maintained,
That's
but
great.
also very far from Denver.
I know it's like that conundrum of, people either choose an area for lifestyle or, because that's where they wanna hang out and they wanna be separate from work, or people choose to be close to work and that's kind of what they choose so that they reduce, like, their commute or whatever. We had friends that in Austin, for example, that worked similar distance, 28, 30 miles, from work, and they would use that commute time to catch up with family, their moms, really just kind of or just like wind down from the day, right?
Mhm.
Listen to some jazz or whatever. So there's definitely kind of yeah, a good trade-off for living, a little bit further, which I can totally appreciate.
We've talked in previous episodes about how lifestyle is so important here in outdoor living, and I think um, that's why Castle Rock is the most populous city in Colorado, right?
Wow.
Even though it is inconvenient for people who have to commute, and 80% of residents there do commute, these people have chosen that lifestyle is more important than the commute.
Sure.
It's more important than the time they have to spend in their car, and I think you make a great point that the there are things that you can do and you make the best of it. You listen to books, you catch up with call your mom, like, call your mom, people,
Listen to
call your
our podcast.
listen to our podcast.
Yeah.
It's a 30-minute podcast. Listen to our podcast
Yeah.
and we're good.
So, the complete opposite area. So, again, in central kind of Denver, is the Hale Mayfair neighborhood. That's where we live. And it is just south of Park Hill. So Colfax, again, I said kind of separates a little bit of Park Hill, but we are just south of Colfax. And this is a really great neighborhood in between Hilltop, which we'll cover in a future episode. Hilltop is, again, like Cherry Creek, more a pricier area, Park Hill. So we're kind of sandwiched in between them, in between those two. So it is, again, a neighborhood similar to Park Hill in that there's good neighborhood culture. We have fair, like basically block parties during the summer where with the city, you can ask them to shut down the street, for the day, and you're in the street with food and kids and jump houses and whatever like bands and et cetera. We had a ice cream truck come because one of the neighbors owns an ice cream store in Park Hill actually, and they opened up their ice cream truck. For the block party and gave away free ice cream to the kids, to everybody, actually. I mean, everyone wanted ice cream.
Wow.
So it's a great neighborhood, a lot of opportunity for homes that are varying sizes. You've got bungalows, you have larger homes. The median price here is about 825 thousand, and it's moved about 3%, appreciated about 3% since last year. But it
Wow.
still has, yeah, it still has that kind of really quaint Denver feel. Many streets have, again, wide canopied trees that kind of line the streets, which make it, fun to walk around. You definitely have shade in summer, when it's kind of, that intense sun that we feel in Denver. And one of the developments recently is an area called Ninth and Co. So Ninth and Colorado. And they've opened an AMC theater there, which is awesome. You can just walk to go to the movies. Lots of restaurants like French, which is a great bistro next to the movie theater. You have, you've got Cava, which is, Mediterranean, Postino, which is kind of like little tapa style Mediterranean again, food, which is great. Just like Frank and Rose coffee shop, super amazing pastries and coffee and really cool vibe, design vibe for sure. Cocktails as well in the evening, champagne, etc. So Ninth and Co is kind of like this area which makes Mayfair and Hale, really walkable. HW Home, which has been in Cherry Creek for decades, is actually moving their flagship store to Ninth in Colorado this summer. And it's a great furniture store, really great accessories. and again, locally owned. I think that's a really cool thing is that it's coming and staying here kind of in the area, which is helping this neighborhood. And then, from like the hangout place, I would say Ninth and Co for sure, or your neighbor's backyard. I love
Right.
Yeah, I love going to our neighbor's back, just walking down the alley, and going we had the other night, our neighbors, they moved here from Texas as well many, many years ago, but they were making fajitas and we're like, "We're there." They had
That's
HEB
right.
yeah, they had HEB tortillas, and if you don't know about HEB tortillas, they're to die for, and it was just fun. So anyway, it's just like, like that kind of, vibe of just going to neighbors' homes and the other thing I love about just central Denver, is the uniqueness of all the homes, right? There's just something special about, living in an area, and we chose kind of this area because, like you mentioned, Castle Rock. We lived in an area similar to that in Austin, even though it was still Austin city limits. It was in the suburbs, and it wasn't really walkable, right? You had to drive to places, and we just wanted something different, than that when we moved here, and so we were fortunate enough to find, this house, and, we just love this neighborhood. Hale and Mayfair have so much opportunity for people who are looking to buy a home and, either fix it up or and have that accessibility to downtown and everything that Denver kinda has to offer.
That's incredible. I have really enjoyed living here and I love it. And I'm so enjoying finding these new areas to discover. In future episodes, we're going to be talking about more. There are so many little towns in Denver. There are so many places that you can go, which all have these different feels and different highlights. So if you have an area that you're thinking about moving to Denver and you're kind of considering these two areas, drop those in the comments below and we can kind of look at those two areas, give you the pros and cons, tell you what we know about those areas, and kind of give you a little bit more insight. And if you just want us to cover your area, also drop that in the notes below as well.
Yeah, absolutely. I think that's great. So, yeah, this has been great. I loved talking about these areas. I know next week we're going to be in Larimer Square, which will be fun on location with Steve Turner, who again was with Colorado Preservation Incorporated. He's also with head of History Denver, and so in History Colorado. So I think that he's going to have some really great information for us next week about Larimer Square and Lodo, that neighborhood Rhino. So I'm looking forward to that.
I'm so excited to nerd out on the history. I love that stuff.
Yeah.
My downtime is watching the History Channel. So I'm really excited to learn about the history of Denver. And I hope that you will subscribe to our podcast. We would love to have you joining us every week. And we also are real estate agents. So if you're thinking about moving to the Denver area, please feel free to reach out to us. We would love to help you in your home search and help you as you discover more about Denver, like we're doing right now.
Absolutely. Thanks, Kenda. And thanks, everybody. This was fun. We'll see you next week.
Thanks for watching.